thanks for everybody who's taking the time to be here today. I'm very, very excited to be speaking with you. So I've got a little presentation which I'm going to share with you. We're going to be talking about EMFs. I'm going to be answering your questions on this very, very, very important topic, electromagnetic field. So welcome. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lloyd Burrell. This is a topic which is really very poorly understood for quite a few reasons. But it's make no mistake that EMFs are impacting your health, whether you can feel it or not. So there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, misleading information out there about this topic. And I'm going to go at least some way, I hope, to putting some of this straight. And yeah, to answer basically as many as your questions as possible as I can in the time that we've got together. So what I'm going to do, I've put a little slideshow together. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I can do that. So I'm going to share screen. Here we go. Okay. So EMF Q&A live stream. So firstly, just my disclaimer, just to be absolutely clear that I'm not giving any medical advice here. This shouldn't be interpreted as medical advice. And you need to always consult a qualified healthcare practitioner if you are looking for medical advice. So that's really important to get clear on, that we're not, you know, I'm not pretending to be a doctor, and I don't want anybody to have any misunderstandings on that. So today's agenda, got lots of questions that people have sent in. Really great to see so many questions. And so I'm going to be answering questions that have been submitted on 5G, Blue Shield, food for EMF protection, the mold EMF connection, dirty electricity, EMFs and children, cell tower radiation protection, low cost EMF protection, because a lot of people thinking we have to spend a lot of money to do anything with EMFs. That's not true. In fact, most of this, as you will come to realize, is a lot of it is about understanding. It's about education. Also microwave ovens, because so many people have got microwave ovens in their homes. So that's an important question. And the best EMF meter, which is a question I get asked a lot. So I want to answer that one. So if you do have questions, I'll be taking those also. I'll be answering your questions via the Zoom, via the Q&A. So you can use the chat to exchange between yourselves, but the Q&A is for questions to me. And don't worry if you don't have time to watch all of this presentation today. The replay will be up for a few days at least. Okay, so you will be able to access the replay and watch it, because I'm going to zap through this pretty quickly. So just to be clear, you know, this is not a high level academic dry, hopefully it's entertaining, but it's not a high level academic presentation on electromagnetic fields. I'm deliberately trying to keep this simple, relatively simple, because it is a complex subject, to give you actionable tips and strategies which you can apply, yeah, things you can do in your life to protect yourselves from this invisible danger. So I've put some questions on some different slides here, so you can see, so you can follow more easily what we're talking about exactly. And so I've got my Zoom, which I need to move out of the way. So here's a question. So first question from Robin, who says, how can I best protect my family from EMFs in our own home, as well as when we're out in society? So that's a great question, great place to start. So, you know, what got me started with this whole EMF thing was, you know, nearly 20 years ago now. I suddenly started reacting to my cell phone, and it just came on out of the blue. My symptoms were severe. And before long, I was reacting not just to my cell phone, but my computer, my TV, the radio in the car, and pretty much everything electrical, including my call to the landline. I knocked on every door I could find looking for help, and I was met with disbelief and sometimes even ridicule from medical professionals, and certainly nobody really had any answers. So I started figuring things out. And the fruit of this experience is what I call the And the so that's like, yes, rather similar to what how the Buddhists, what the Buddhists use. But the for me actually stands for understand, measure, and mitigate. And this is the protocol I developed from what happened to me for dealing with EMFs. And it's part of this holistic approach to EMF protection. Okay, so looking at all aspects of this EMF question and dealing with notably the 4 types of EMFs. And this is what you need to do, Robin, is to, and I'm going to be developing on this, so don't worry, but this is just to give you a sense of where I'm going today. So we're always wanting to always look at the 4 types of EMFs, okay? And the 4 types are wireless, which I call radio frequency microwave radiation. That's not the term that I invented, but that's a more correct term than wireless. Radio frequency microwave radiation, electric fields, magnetic fields, and dirty electricity. Don't worry if this is all going over your head a little bit at this stage, but I will elaborate on all of this. But this is the protocol, which is laid out in my ultimate EMF protection kit, which is laid out in my book, which I've talked about many, many times, and which works. And you know, the reason I talk about this is because it works. And I didn't invent this protocol. I put it together in that way, but this is an accepted method, an accepted approach of dealing with EMFs. And remember, I was hypersensitive. And so that's why I'm sharing it. It worked for me. It works for other people. And there's lots of testimonials from people who've bought my books and things that talk about this, that can support this. And just one thing I want to get out there right at the beginning here is that I want you to protect your bedroom. So we're going to be talking about lots of different things, okay? But the bedroom, that is the one room where you should focus your efforts, okay? And you need to apply this protocol in the bedroom, the and what that means. So the first part of the is the understand. The second part is to measure. And the third part is to mitigate. And certainly in the bedroom, that is the room where you need to be measuring these 4 kinds of EMFs. And that's the broad strokes, Robin, of what I recommend doing. And I'm going to be developing on this, this strategy and this approach through this little presentation, which I'm giving you here today. So question from Haley, who says, how can I make my children's school recognize the harm their children are in on a daily basis at school with all the wireless devices they use? Okay, so I'm having to move my Zoom around a little bit to there we go, put that in the corner. Yeah, so how to make schools, your school recognize this. And so I wanted to address this because this is such an important topic, what we're doing to our children with these EMFs, because as an adult, then you have certain decisions, certain choices you can make. But many of us, or let's say children, are having this inflicted on them, And it's our duty as parents, it's our duty as a society to understand these dangers and protect our children in a general sense. But so here I'm talking about EMFs, they need protection from EMFs. And the reason why is because children are more vulnerable. And that's what the science says, okay? And Cis Doucet actually talked about this at length, Cis Doucet on the summit. So in terms of solution, and she laid out some solutions, things you can do, and I'm going to share some of those things. But firstly, do what you're doing right now, and that's to say, get educated on this topic, understand this topic, and there's some resources that you can, so there is the summit, which is really just the best collection, the biggest collection I know of expert interviews on this, which you can still buy. But there's some other websites you can go to. There's electricsense.com, which is my website, which is over 500 articles, science-based articles on there. There's a great research resource called the EHT Trust. It's actually ehtrust.org, but Environmental Health Trust, okay, ehtrust.org. And then there's a website which was created a little bit more recently called Children's Health Defense.org, which is really doing a lot of great work on this aspect also. So first thing, yeah, get educated about this. Talk to other parents, get them educated, share some of these resources with a view to creating a group, because it's by coming together that you're going to be able to get people to listen up. And that doesn't mean preaching to people. That's what you need to avoid, because unfortunately, there's people are very attached to their various devices, cell phones and Wi-Fi and so on. And so we need to do this in a non-aggressive approach, softly approach, to speak to people, create a group, and call a meeting with the head teacher, with the board, and lay out the science, explain the problem. And boy, is there a lot of science on this. And when we've got science on this particular question, going back to the mid-90s, with regard to these, what EMFs do to children and how it's much worse. And there's some great visuals which are online on my website, on these websites I'm talking about, showing how radiation impacts a child's skull more than an adult's. So what I also recommend is to club together to buy a meter. So we're back to the understanding, and then we're measuring with an EMF meter, or, you know, buy one, borrow one, or get in an EMF consultant, a building biologist, a GeoVital, a consultant, or somebody by word of mouth. Some great consultants out there, so go by recommendation. That's always good to do. And your objective is to, it's really in schools, the biggest problem generally is wireless, but it's not only wireless, unfortunately. There's other problems also, dirty electricity. That's why perhaps it's better to get in, to perhaps club together and get in a consultant, which you might even find one that would do it pro bono for something like this. And certainly what you would be looking at is, or aiming for, is to remove the wireless and replace it with a wired connection, an Ethernet hardwired connection. So yeah, we'll be looking at wireless, and also we would be looking at dirty electricity exposures, which I'm going to develop on if you're not clear on what that is in a moment. So, question from Elizabeth, who says, I teach in the public schools. Everything is now Wi-Fi. Kids bring their phones. I saw utility men laying 5G wiring last spring. What can I do to protect myself and other kids in the classroom? So let's get clear on some of the terms, because I know this can be confusing. And so if you have a Wi-Fi router, okay, well, I say router, I know probably most of you say router. So if you have a Wi-Fi router, modem router, a device which can give you internet wirelessly, okay, that's all that is. And if that device says 5 gigahertz on it, or you have a wireless system that says that it's 5 gigahertz, that just means that it emits and receives in this 5 gigahertz frequency, which is usually 5.8 gigahertz. Okay, there's 2.45 and 5.8. Those are, and there's other frequencies as well, which they're using more and more. But that's what that means on a Wi-Fi modem router. So that's not 5G. 5G literally means 5th generation of cellular technology, and that's where we're going with the wireless. So we have these, we started out with the 1st generation, and now we're on the 5th, and we've already got the 6th and the 7th in the pipeline. And that is quite different to the 5 gigahertz, because the 5G means a whole load of things. It means the small cells. We're going to be, there's going to be literally millions of small cells which are going to be installed in cities and urban areas around the world, just alone in the US, millions. And then we've got all these satellites in space, something in the region of 100,000 satellites in space to date. This figure is changing all the time. So that's what 5G is, okay? And that's quite different from 5 gigahertz, which we're talking about. So maybe, these are short questions, and so maybe that's not exactly answering that, but hopefully that's giving some clarity on that question. But in terms of, you know, what you can do to protect yourself and the kids, most importantly, my recommendations are what I just shared there on the previous, regard to the previous question. So the education, learn about as much about this as possible. This is what Cease to Set did, and literally she's become a leader. It's a mom. She's a mom. She talks about this on the summit. She's a mom, and she was fighting to get technology introduced, and then she came across somebody who explained to her how devastating these EMFs were, particularly to children. And she did a 180, and now she's fighting to get it removed, and very successfully, by the way. Lots of different actions that she's led at her local level. And so this is possible. You don't have to become a Cease to Set, but you can, and Cease, so it's C-E-C-E. Do Set is written D-O-U-C-E-T-T-E if you want to Google her. She's a wonderful lady. So follow her example, talk to other people, create a group, get readings, work on mitigation measures with the school board. And yeah, it is possible, because a lot of this is also, you know, these school boards, they're ignorant. It's not that they want to hurt our children. My God, I mean, that is just a terrible thought, but it's more that it's just sheer ignorance. So that's it's a lot of it is just helping people see reason, see the light, perhaps. So question from Kathleen, who says, what can people who live in condos do to protect themselves from other residents, EMF, who don't turn off their Wi-Fi or use other safer practices? And that's a great question, because I know there's it's, you know, for people, you know, the biggest really challenges for people are those people that are living in the cities, okay, because we're surrounded, you know, in urban areas, we're surrounded by this wireless, notably. So, but here's the thing, you know, it's not because you can pick up 30 or 50 different Wi-Fi networks on your phone or on your computer, there's nothing you can't do to protect yourself. Because what we know about EMFs, and I'm talking about the science, is that the further away you are from an EMF source, and by that I mean cell phone, Wi-Fi, router, cell tower, etc., any smart device, so the further you are away from this EMF source, the less your exposure, significantly less, okay? Exponentially less, because EMFs work generally, most EMFs, in an exponential manner. That's to say, the more distance you put between you and the device, then you get an exponential drop, a very, very significant drop in exposure. And so power does come into this a little bit, but it's really it's actually power density, okay? But so let's not get too technical, but most Wi-Fi routers, they're emitting at roughly the same power level. So given that the only one, or for most people, the one which is nearest to you is the one which is in your home, and if there is one in the neighbors, then building materials do have a shielding effect to some extent. So where you need to focus is in your own home. It's not because there's all these different networks and so on and external exposures that you should resign yourself to being bombarded by all of this. There is a lot you can do. And so we're back to the understanding, measuring, mitigate these 4 types of exposures: the radio frequency, electric fields, magnetic fields, dirty electricity. And certainly with regard to Wi-Fi, then what I recommend is you replace your Wi-Fi with a wired connection. And you want to be mitigating as many sources of EMFs in your own home, okay? So question from John here. So John says, I really enjoyed your interview with Mr. Stetzer on dirty electricity. I did read the book, Dirty Electricity, by Dr. Samuel Millam several years ago, and did nothing about it except complain to my electrical engineer friends. There are other competitive brands of dirty electricity filters besides the Stetzer. Have you looked at the others? Yeah, so great question. So for those of you that don't know, dirty electricity is this electrical pollution that can be found on electrical wiring. And the problem is that these frequencies don't stay on the wire. They permeate out into your home, into your workplace very often, and into you. That's the concern. And pretty much all homes are saturated with these frequencies. And that might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not, okay? And the problem is that these exposures are linked to cancer and other serious diseases. And you might be going, hang on a minute, I never heard of that. Well, no, a lot of people have not heard of this, but the science is there. Less science than with wireless exposures, certainly, but the science is there. A lot of Russian science, decades of Russian science, notably, and some European science, and American also. And so the first thing to do, John, well, for everybody who's wanting to address this dirty electricity problem which you've got in your home. So it's like, wow, hang on a minute, I never heard about that. So now I've got dirty electricity to contend with too. I was only thinking that, you know, the wireless was a problem, but no, there is this dirty electricity. Make no mistake, this is a problem in most homes. Because this is the world we live in, because we've got all these devices which are creating this dirty electricity. Pretty much everything electrical now is, even lighting, is creating dirty electricity. And certainly computers, TV, pretty much everything, washing machines, you name it, is creating this dirty electricity. And so the first thing to do is try and eliminate these devices that are doing that. And I share a protocol in my kit and in my book, which to actually go through that, and it's not that complicated to do. But the first thing to do, it's a kind of a Sherlock Holmes exercise, is to eliminate those devices rather than introducing filters. Is with a meter, is to pinpoint which devices are creating this humongous these humongous levels of dirty electricity sometimes. So that's the first thing to do. Eliminate it if you can. And the second thing is to introduce filters, because these harmful frequencies can be filtered out. That's the good news, and quite successfully. And in terms of brands, then there is the Stetzer riser filter, which was developed by Dave Stetzer and Dr. Martin Graham. They're kind of the pioneers. And so that's one solution. Then we've got the green wave filter, which is another solution. Both of those companies have good reputations, but there are two other brands which I'm quite impressed with. And one of them is Satic, S-A-T-I-C, and they're a US company, and they make also individual plug filters. So you just go around your house and you plug in these filters where you need them on the electrical sockets. And they make those, but they also make whole home filter units, which you just put one filter unit. You need an electrician to do that. So that's another very effective way of dealing with that. And that's what I recommend. That's really, if you're in the US, certainly I recommend exploring that. And if you're in Europe, what I recommend is and this is actually what I use, the Vortex Hi-Fi Power Optimizer. And it's made by a German company, and all the website is in English. They don't speak a lot of English, unfortunately, but their product is amazing. And I learned about this through Marcel van Riet, who is Dutch. And he was on the summit also. And he's, I believe he's building, but I'm not sure anyway, but he's an EMF consultant. And what I recommend you, so if you are in Europe, Google Vortex Hi-Fi Power Optimizer. Okay, Vortex Hi-Fi Power Optimizer. That's the easiest way of finding that, because their website is like a German word and it's a bit difficult to explain. So question here from Nika, who says, what is your preferred EMF meter and why? What are its pros and cons? So great question. So what there is to understand here is that there is no best EMF meter, because the best EMF meter depends on you and your circumstances. So what's best for you is not necessarily best for me. And it depends on your circumstances, your particular needs and your budget. And what I'm alluding to here is that people that are hypersensitive, they wouldn't necessarily have the same meter configuration, because it's never just one meter. It's always several to measure these 4 categories, remember, that we've been talking about. And so if you're just kind of health conscious, then that would be different to if you're electrically hypersensitive. So to answer your question, Nikki, I would need to know your particular circumstances, but what I will say, if I had to choose one meter for most people, which is a good choice for most people, what I would choose is the Trifield TF2, which I have here, okay, which is that one, okay, and it's really beautifully, I'm just flicking through it, really, it's just a turn, it's a point and turn device, which is really the beauty of it, is it is so beautifully simple to use, but it has this tri-mode functionality, so mag, elec, and RF, meaning magnetic, electric, and radio frequency, so it can measure these 3 categories. And what I like about it is it's very good. It has very good magnetic field functionality. That's their kind of specialty, the people at Alpha Labs who make this, US built this is. They make meters which are good for measuring magnetic fields. So magnetic fields is what you find in electrical wiring, okay? And it's got audio, and the price, it's relatively inexpensive, under $200. And you might think, wow, that's a lot of money, Lloyd. But You know, when I first started with this, I was just looking for cheap, to be honest. I didn't really understand what you got for your money with these meters, but you do get what you pay for. And so there are lots of cheapo meters out there on websites. I'm not going to cite the one, but you know the one I'm talking about, that big one, which just sell anything, any old rubbish. And so no, don't do that. And there are lots of great meters out there, and the tri-field is really one of the simplest, and that's why I recommend it. The cons really is on the RF mode sensitivity. It is better than it was before, way better, but it's still less sensitive than other meters like the Cornet meter, which is also a great meter, Cornet ED88T Plus, or the Acousticom, the Acoustimeter AM11. AM11 is the new version, which is basically identical to the AM10, which has been around for a long, long time. And the other thing I don't particularly like, if you want to know all the cons about the tri-field, is it only measures to 6 gigahertz, whereas most of the meters are measuring to 8 gigahertz. So, you know, you want to be, if we could measure, because 5G is going way beyond that, to 20, 40 or more gigahertz in different countries. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. And the other thing I don't particularly like is this business about standard and weighted mode. Okay, if you can see that, don't particularly like that. I think it's a bit confusing. And yeah, if they didn't have that, then it would be, but that's a small point. If you didn't have that, it would be even easier to use, but it is really a great meter for the price. So question from Sarah, who says, my house is surrounded by communication towers and installed at nearby houses and commercial buildings. How can I ensure that they are not harming me? Could you please indicate any technical literature which explains the radiation pattern, the distance, the angles those radiations cover? Okay, great question. And a big concern, I know, for a lot of people, and a growing concern because of 5G and all these new small cells, refrigerator-sized batteries of antennas, which are going out for this new millimeter wave MMW technology. So for any EMF challenge, what I want you to think about, I want you to see an EMF challenge, I want you to go, because that will make you think, okay, I need to understand, well, what do I need to understand? What kind of EMF are we talking about here? And if you don't know, then, you know, go to one of these websites, go to ElectriSense, go to eht.org, go to, not necessarily Google it, because Google is really censored. My website's censored, and a lot of natural health sites are censored now. But go to, so it's relatively easy still to get reliable information on this. And so, yeah, figure out what kind of EMF we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about radio frequency microwave radiation. And, you know, there are all kinds of things you can do to try and figure out just how much that cell tower, how much that small cell, how much, you know, how much you're being zapped by looking at, you know, am I in direct line of sight? Is there any obstacles between me and the tower? You could go to antennasearch.org, I think it is. Look for the technical data. You can look at the shape of the dish to determine the radiation beam. You can do so many things, but really, at the end of the day, the only way to know is to take readings with an EMF meter. So we're on to the M. We've done the understand, and now we're going to do the measure. And we measure with an EMF meter, and you can do it with the tri-field meter, or the Acoustimeter, which I mentioned, or the safe and sound meter is a great meter. If you're just looking to measure, if you know that is all you want to measure is radio frequency, microwave radiation, then the safe and sound RF meter, which you can buy from Safe Living Technologies, who are in Canada, and it costs something like 150 Canadian dollars, is my understanding when I looked at their website earlier. Then that is a really great meter, and that is what I would be doing. So get the readings for yourself, okay? And we do talk about cell tower radiation in the summit, which you can still purchase, by the way. You can actually still purchase the full summit, and Oren Miller talks about this. And also I have an interview with Professor Kumar, who's really one of the top world specialists on this in the EMF Expert Solutions Club. When you buy the summit, you get 30 days free access to that, to those interviews, which is nearly 200 interviews. So that's some more resources which are really exceptional. But the key is to get the readings. And then obviously once you've got the readings, then is to potentially take action. But often these external exposures, 9 times out of 10 even, and possibly 99 times out of 100, the external exposures are not the problem. So people think, oh, that cell tower, you know, which is just outside my front door there, and so on. But the problem is from internal sources, from all these devices, which so many people have in their homes. That's where the problem lies. And that's why you need to take action, and you have this control. Most of us have this control over our full environment. So question from Haley, and I hope I'm not going too fast here, but I do want to zip through this, and I do want to take your questions afterwards in the Q&A. So question from Haley, who says, I've been looking into has some products from Blue Shield for my home. Right, okay, so you're looking into Blue Shield products and when moving between safe places. Any thoughts on this brand? Okay, Blue Shield. So, you know, there are a whole host of devices out there which go beyond the conventional EMF approach, which I endorse. And so, yeah, that's the yeah. And Blue Shield is one of them. And Blue Shield, I know they emit these different frequencies, which according to their research has a normalizing effect on the body. And they've actually, I know they've actually got some studies, because I interviewed the CEO, Mark Landon, on this. And they've actually got some animal studies which show a number of fairly significant changes in blood, notably less oxidation, and also the cell membrane. So here's what I recommend. What I recommend is to do the do the conventional EMF protection first. That's foundational. Okay, do that. Do rigorous EMF protection, rigorous do that. Then once you've done that, you can try devices like Blue Shield. And frankly, you know, there are people which rave about these devices. I'm not talking about Blue Shield particularly, but rave about certain devices, and others that buy them and say, look, they just don't work. But we know the works. The is tried and tested. Okay, the works. It's not a quick fix. Question from Tina, who says, I had a functional genomics done. The doctor said that I'm sensitive to EMFs because of mold toxicity. Is there any validity to this? So firstly, let's get clear. If you're symptomatic around EMFs, then EMFs are not your only problem. I'm going to say that again, because it's super important. And a lot of people miss this, and I missed this for years. And there's a lot of people suffering that don't get this. If you're symptomatic around electromagnetic fields, these man-made electromagnetic fields around these devices, around cell phone or around Wi-Fi or around computers, anything electrical, then EMFs, I bet my bottom dollar on it, okay? EMFs are not your only problem. It's never just EMFs in isolation. So heavy metals is certainly one thing. It's always EMFs and something else. And heavy metals is a common one because of the world we live in. There's so much pollution out there, and they accumulate in the body, and they accumulate over years. We're talking aluminium, lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium. If you have heavy metal poisoning, then you're particularly susceptible to EMF exposures. That we know. There's a lot of, there's a fair amount of research, but there's a lot of doctors which have come to this conclusion, and it's causing people a lot of pain. The other one is mold. And it's, you know, there are many, it's always EMFs and another toxin, but I'm just highlighting two here: EMFs and heavy metals, EMFs and mold. And this EMF mold combo is an important one. And Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, who's done some work on this, found that the production of biotoxins in mold, these mycotoxins, increased by more than 600 times when exposed to cell phone radiation. Okay, 600 times. So, you know, dealing with mold in your home is an absolute no-brainer. And the other thing to understand, and I learned this from a researcher called Carolyn Ledowski, who's specialized in this mold question, and is that if you've been exposed to mold as a child, then the mold can still be in your system and it can still be playing havoc with your health, with the EMFs and with other things. But let's just be clear, you know, there's lots of toxins going on. But what we're discovering with EMFs is that EMFs have this ability to interact with all these different toxins, you know, the glyphosate and all these different, the viruses and the bacteria and all these toxins that we're exposed to. They have the ability to create this synergistic effect, which can be literally catastrophic. And, you know, the links between these EMF exposures and disease are becoming clearer and clearer. And there is decades of research on this. Bioinitiative.org is, if you want just the science, pure straight science, you love reading studies, then go there. And it's a report which was first created in 2007. Like a 600-page report, and updated in 2012, 30 top researchers, scientists, public policy officials, independent, really science, really great resource for that. So yeah, that's with regard to mold. And the takeaway here is it's all the more reason to adopt this rigorous EMF protection, to do the okay, all the more reason if you've got this mold, or if you know that, and get tested for mold. If you are symptomatic around EMFs, get tested for mold, get tested for heavy metals also. These are all boxes which, if you're symptomatic, you need to be ticking. So Sebastian asks, which of the EMFs can you do something about when you cannot do a structural change to your rental apartment, electrical, magnetic, or radio frequency? And which budget-friendly EMF detectors do you recommend in regards to achieving better sleep? Is sleep affected by the magnetic field or the electric field or radio frequency? That is the most unclear to you. So sleep is affected by all of the above. That's what the science is saying. It's affected by the wireless. It's affected by the magnetic fields. And it's affected by the electric fields. And it's probably, I don't know of any research on that today, but probably affected by the dirty electricity exposure, these intermediate frequencies, which are between these radio frequency and these electric fields and magnetic fields. So what we know is that these exposures impact your melatonin. Melatonin is what's secreted by the pineal gland. It's a hormone which is very important for hormone regulation. It's an important antioxidant and has these amazing cancer fighting properties. And so you can deal with all EMFs when you live in a rental apartment. It's just that sometimes it's a bit more challenging. Yeah, you have to be a little bit inventive as to what you do. And so, for instance, with a if you're trying to shield from wireless, then perhaps a Faraday shield, a Faraday canopy is the way to go. A canopy which you put on your bed, which is a specially designed canopy, which shields you very simply, but is rather expensive. But that's the easiest way of doing it. And that avoids whole room shielding, for instance. You can also switch off the breaker switches of the circuits to your bedroom. Do that for a week to deal with electric fields, magnetic fields, and dirty electricity. See how it goes. I'm not guaranteeing you'll feel better, but most people do. Sometimes you can have a quirky electrical system and it actually creates a higher surge on that electrical circuit and can make you feel worse. But you always listen to your body. And that's really the most important advice I can give you. And that's when all this started making sense to me, is when I was starting to listen to my body. So you can look at all the science. You know, the reason I'm talking to you here today is because I listened to my body. It's not because I went out and read the studies. So you can get an electrician to install an EMF safe switch. To do that automatically, this switching of the electrical circuits. And again, remember at the beginning, I said, look, if there's one thing you want to be focusing on, it's your bedroom. So this is important. What you do in your bedroom, it's the bedroom and kids really are the two most important topics, okay, in this whole, in my view, in this whole EMF arena. And so you can install and get an electrician to do that, by the way, this EMF safe switch. And you install it, and then when you move house, you want to install it. It's plug and play, and the website is liveemfsafe.com. Okay, it's a plug and play thing for an electrician, but don't do it yourself. You do need to be an electrician. And with regard to EMF meters for general purpose, well, as I say, I recommend the TF2 because it's for all the reasons which I highlighted earlier. And to go with that, I recommend the Stetzerizer microsurge meter to measure dirty electricity, because that way you're measuring these 4 categories. Yeah, the 4 categories, which I keep telling you about: the radio frequency, the magnetic field, the electric field, and the dirty electricity. So I hope that helps on that one. Question from Jane. I don't have much money, and it seems everything I need to protect me and my autistic son and my daughter from EMFs is so expensive. Trying to figure out most important steps to take first, and also the most economical, i.e. what RF meter to buy, is the Chi machine worth the price, and how important is it to get dirty electricity fixed? Not sure who to even call for that. So that's a great question. I'm just going to take a sip of my juice here, if I can, one sec. So that's a great question. And autism, by the way, there is quite a bit of research linking EMF exposures to autism. Peter Sullivan talked about this on the summit. He's a father who did very well in the Silicon Valley, computers and so on, and had 2 autistic children. And put 2 and 2 together with regard to EMF exposures and his child's autism. And really, one of his kids, I remember, was very autistic, and just a radical turnaround when he started taking EMF protection very seriously, a radical turnaround in his child's symptoms. And that child went on to do like acting in a theater, as I recall. And so, yeah, so that's the information on that on the summit. Peter Sullivan, and it's called Clear Stream, I forget now, but if you can Google Peter Sullivan, he's got a website also. So the first step is education, and that's what we're doing now, educating yourself, Jane. So it's not about it's not all about money. You do need some money, but it's about understanding this thing. There's so many things you can do which don't necessarily cost a ton of money. So that's the U of the then we measure, and that's really what you need to understand. What everybody needs to understand here today is that buying an EMF meter is one of the best investments you can make for your health in today's world. It's as important as having a screwdriver in your home. Your home is saturated with these frequencies, which thousands of studies are linking to cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease, you name it. So many of these chronic diseases, and here we are bathing ourselves, bathing our kids in them, in these frequencies. Really, we're blind to all this unless we have a meter. And this buying a meter will guide you in all your subsequent actions. It will be the guiding light for you to make decisions as to what to do, as to what protection steps to take. So buying a meter, and again, the Tri-Field TF2 meter is a great choice because it's this tri-mode meter that can measure these three categories. And with regard to dirty electricity, and I talk about dirty electricity in detail, both in my EMF Practical Guide book. Okay, so this is a book which I've written. You've probably not heard about that much because it's censored on Amazon. And but it's a book which is critically acclaimed. Dr. McCullough, Dr. David Carpenter, lots of people endorsed that book, and a very solution-oriented approach. So we're back to the education. Personally, I love books. I'm a book person. You can't see, but I'm surrounded by books. Also the module 3 of my kit, the Ultimate EMF Protection Kit, which you can also buy, is devoted to, or in large part anyway, goes through how to protect yourself from dirty electricity. So dealing with the 4 types of EMFs and calling in an EMF consultant. And you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, but yeah, I'm like, I don't have a lot of money to do this, but you don't have to do this all at once. You know, for instance, the kit is $39, which is just, I don't know anywhere where you can get that much education, high-level education on EMFs for that kind of money and that kind of guidance. But if you don't, you need the education. You need to understand this, so having the understanding, and then having your first meter, which I recommend that the Tri-Field, and this is a relatively small investment, when you can, you know, save up, or you can get in an EMF consultant, you know, a building biologist, geovital consultant. Really, these are the things that you should be doing. They're the priorities. Buying the Chi machine, for me, that's much lower down the list of priorities. And those devices are expensive, I know. And I'm not saying they're not good, but we're back to the do the conventional EMF protection, and then layer in these other possible solutions. So I hope that helps on that one, Jane. Question from Stephanie, who says, I know that microwave ovens give off harmful EMFs when in use, i.e. heating food. My question is a microwave oven still giving off harmful EMFs when plugged into the wall with clock time activated, ready for use, but not actually in use? If so, how much harmful EMF is given off when not in use? And does my microwave need to remain unplugged unless I am using it? So microwave oven, and I wanted to talk about this because so many people have these, and they are convenient. They're so convenient. I know And we don't actually have a microwave oven for reasons which you will understand very shortly. But so the microwave oven has something called a magnetron in it, and it gives off, this magnetron gives off radio frequency very high, very, very high, way higher than any cell phone that I've seen when it's in operation, so when it's turning, and it gives off high magnetic fields from the cable and motors, high, very high. One of the highest sources in the home of both those, typically, both those kinds of exposures. But if it's just plugged in and not switched on, not heating food, then really it's no different. And I mean, so this is a generalization, but it's no different than any other device. And so we have smart devices also now, which smart devices, by the way, that means it's not smart at all, it's wireless. And so wireless means radio frequency microwave radiation, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And I'm sure, I've not seen one, but I'm sure there are smart microwave ovens out there. So we have that possibility that it's emitting a radio frequency microwave radiation, as are, you know, like dishwasher, washing machine, TV, you name it. All these devices, most of these devices are smart, and they're linked to your smart meter, this network, and they're sending back data back and forth, and you're caught up in all that data. Our energy, our subtle energy, our everything that we are is caught, you know, is based on energy, and we're caught up in all this man-made energy, and that's the problem. That's what these studies, that's what science is telling us. So if it's not plugged in, so the only way to know, okay, let's be clear, the only way to know is the ohm, and the ohm, part of doing the ohm is to measure, and that's and if you don't have the money to go out and buy a meter right now, and you know, having listened to all this, you think, oh my God, you know, all these things in my home, then go around unplugging them. And the less things you've got plugged in, the better. That's a simple, this thing to do if you want to take immediate action. Question from Judith, who says, how can we really be protected when EMFs are everywhere? Can eating certain foods or supplements or even herbs protect us from EMFs? Thank you. So we can be protected when EMFs are everywhere, and it's what you do in your home. Obviously, when you're out and about and in the shopping mall or whatever, then you don't have control over that. And short of walking around in a beekeeper's suit, you know, with the full EMF protection, full Faraday cage, which I don't recommend, apart from very extreme cases for a short-term basis. There's not a lot you can do about that short term anyway, because we can all do something about all of this. Actually, we all have a lot more power than we think or we're led to believe. But really what we're focusing on is what you can do in your own home. And that's the what I'm sharing here is controlling your own environment and everything there. And if already you're controlling your own environment, reducing your exposures in your own home environment, then when you go out, you have more resilience to these external exposures and everything else which is coming at us now when we go out. So, and then with regard to, you know, food and supplements and things, so yeah, just some quick tips here. You know, first thing is to be really well hydrated, and because EMFs, what we know are that EMFs are contributing to these dehydration issues. You know, how is it everybody's walking around drinking water all of a sudden? I mean, when I was a kid, that we didn't see that. People weren't walking around with bottles of water, and it seems we all need water nowadays. And the problem is, dehydration is a massive problem, and it's something you don't necessarily think about that. I'm talking cellular dehydration. I'm not talking about being thirsty. It's just your cells are dehydrated. And so what we need to do is to introduce more structured water, EZ water, exclusion zone water, and there's a growing body of science on that. Dr. Gerald Pollock has done some brilliant research on that, and we've got this structured water in our bodies, and the more we have of that, the better. So that's with regard to water. With regard to hydration, which is super important. And by the way, hydration is not all about drinking water. It's about water-based foods, water-rich foods, certainly. Secondly is to eat whole, natural, organic foods if you can, okay? And eat locally grown produce if you can, eat seasonal if you can. You know, that's what Mother Nature intended, to eat foods in season. And include, this is really important, not talked about enough, is to include good quality fats in your diet, because we're like thinking now people are, so we've got all these problems with people being overweight and obese and so on. And so we're told, oh no, you have to avoid fats and things and go low fat. But no, actually you need good quality fat. There's certain fats, trans fats, which you need to be avoiding. But, you know, like extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, palm fruit oil, grass-fed butter, ghee, sesame seed oil, argan oil. These are like this, like I eat daily salads, often from the garden, and I'm putting these oils, I'm consuming these oils every day. Super important, again, for cellular hydration. And you need small quantities of a wide variety of organic oils. And, you know, you want to make sure you're getting your omega-3s. Well, most of us are. It's the omega-6s we're not getting. And consuming foods with good quality fats. And all this bolsters hydration. So antioxidants. So in terms of supplements, we're looking at vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin D3, which is obviously best source is the sun. And I'm going very quickly, I know, but you'll be able to listen to this again. And so what we need to understand is that these EMF exposures cause a loss of calcium. And there's a lot of science behind this by Dr. Martin Paul, of these voltage gated calcium channels and what that does. And this loss of calcium also means a loss of magnesium. And magnesium can only be absorbed if there's enough oil and vitamin B's in the body. So, you know, all this is like pieces which fit together. We can't just look at EMFs or any aspect of our health in isolation. And in terms of herbs, then one to look at and try and consume is rosemary, which is quite easy to grow. I've got rosemary, actually ours has died, I've got to get some more, but it should be easy to grow, but not this year, and it's inexpensive, and try and take that with meals, cook it with, I like to cook it with potatoes, roast potatoes with rosemary is very nice, and garlic. I love talking about food. So question from Elena, who says, can I still purchase the videos from the summit which just ended? You absolutely can. There's over 40 expert interviews on this summit, with a ton of bonuses. How to make a Faraday cage for under $300 or $280, I think it is in the title, or inexpensively anyway. Nearly a dozen e-guides, 30 days access to my membership EMF Expert Solutions Club, where we've got nearly 200 cutting edge interviews. Remember, I talked about the Dr. Kumar interview on cell phone radiation, interviews with top doctors, building biologists, EMF experts, and you can also download transcripts. So absolutely, you can still buy the summit. And I really, really, really encourage you to buy the summit, because it is, he says mostly modestly, it is just top notch, and not thanks to me, thanks to all the people that I was able to interview and that were opened up, some of them, pretty much all of them, very, very frankly, and talked about this. We need frank conversations about this. Question from Yesinia, who says, what can it be if you get headaches on the new house after they wired the security cameras and EMF reader does not read too high? Also electric poles in the back of my house. Thanks. So yeah, it could be. So here we have a correlation, it would seem, and correlation is not causation, as we say, but you know, what you could do is have the cameras deactivated for 48 hours or a week and see if you're still getting these headaches. And if you are, then that would suggest that they are from these cameras. And these, it can be like burglar style cameras, or it can be heat cameras, but it tends to be the burglar style ones. And they work on these very, very high frequencies now. So high that most meters can't measure it, but a building biologist, for instance, with a good meter, he would be able to measure it. But the thing is, if you do that test I told you, then then you know it's that. And then it's a question of, do I replace these, or do I not use them, or do I use them less? And those are the kind of decisions which you would have to be making from that. But it's not uncommon. And on all these topics, there is actually, so on my website, I've got thousands of comments on these articles that I've written over the years, over 10 years now, literally thousands of people talking about these different things. And you can search the websites, not as easy it was because of the Google censorship, because that's the best search, or it was. But there's even articles on that on burglar alarms. With regard to electric poles, so you should be able to measure those because we're talking about ELFs, is, sorry to use a bit more jargon, extremely low frequencies, and typically would be magnetic fields. And if they're on poles, then I would suspect it's not a problem. But again, you need to measure the okay? So it's more like the pylons, which are carrying electricity between cities, though if you've got one of those near you, then that is a bigger problem. So a question from Jenna. She says, I've heard aluminum foil can block EMFs. Is using that an effective barrier for a phone or laptop, like lining the case or underneath, either in a pinch or as a long-term solution? Is there any advantage to using marketed shielding products over that? So the aluminium foil can work for RFs. So pretty much anything metal will shield to some degree from RFs. With foil, the thicker the better. But the problem with the foil is it's easily damaged. And once you get a rip in that foil, then that's it. Your RF protection or EMF protection pretty much goes out the window. You can't use foil for blocking magnetic fields, but you would need to buy a laptop shield to do that, and two brands which are reputable are the Harapad and the Defender shield. So hopefully that's clear on that. Now I'm going to answer some of your questions via the Q&A form on the Zoom. So please put your questions on there. I can see some questions already. So just to remind you, this is not intended as medical advice, and you need to be consulting a qualified healthcare professional if you are seeking medical advice. So we need to be absolutely clear on that. So before I answer your questions, I just want to talk about my ultimate EMF protection kit. And so you can, this kit is really the most complete resource on dealing with EMFs, on hands-on how to deal with EMFs, practical solutions, how to protect yourself. So it develops on some of what I've talked about today. Obviously it goes into it in much more detail, and it really is a great resource, which I can't really recommend highly enough. You get this 290-page ebook. So this is the printed version, okay? But you get the digital version. And and which is a very comprehensive review summary, I should say, of the science, the dangers, and every single chapter has got practical solutions, every single chapter. So it's not one of those books which talks about all the problems and all the dangers, and then you don't know what the heck to do about it. It's not that at all. You also get my 4-part webinar series, which has modules on cell phone radiation, 5G, wireless, electrical wiring, grounding, dirty electricity, and also advanced EMF protection. You also get my 200-page ebook, which is actually the first book I wrote on this EMF subject, How to Beat Electrical Sensitivity, where I share in detail my holistic approach to EMF protection, including 8 energy techniques to deal with EMFs. And you get Wireless Elephant in the Room, which gives a good review of the science and the controversy around EMFs and how, because boy, there is a lot of controversy, and that's why people like me are talking about it, because you can't get it from the people you should be getting it from, our authorities and our governments. Yeah, this information should be common knowledge. We should be protecting our children, particularly from this. And you also get access to my EMF foundational protection series, which is MP3s and transcripts on things like how to set up a low EMF office, how to reduce exposures in your car, and topics like that. And so the Summit special price is $39. It's a limited time offer, it is. And it's just a great package for that price. Normally, it sells for $99. Full price is $99. And really, it's one of the best investments you can make. And if you want the complete thing, then what I recommend is getting the Summit, and you can get this when you bought the Summit. And I think the Summit's on the digital version, is because I think it's sold out, the physical version, but you can still get the digital version at $59 and this at $39. So for over $100, boy, you get really some amazing, an amazing way forward on how to live a healthy life in our electromagnetic world, which is my mission to do. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to go to the Q&A. And so just going to take a sip of my juice here a second. So lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. So let's have a look. So, okay, so first question, what are your thoughts on 5G's potential effects on the graphene oxide in the COVID vaccines? And I know that there's been some talk about that. Let me just talk about EMFs and COVID generally, and there is some science on this, and it's Dr. Beverly Rubik who's done some science on this. And what she's found, she's done a research paper, is that wireless notably increases the severity and prevalence of COVID-19, this thing what we call COVID-19. And that, so I'm kind of stepping on eggs a little bit, as you probably see when I'm talking about this, because I don't want people to think that EMFs, electromagnetic fields, or wireless are in any way causing COVID. But we do have really, when we look at what EMFs do, and when we look at what COVID is doing, and from what we can understand, because it's difficult to get accurate information, but, you know, just the oxidative stress, I mean, it's like being exposed to EMFs all day prepares you for the COVID, to oversimplify this massively. Prepares you for this virus. And what's unfortunate is that with this pandemic is that a lot of people find themselves at home and using computers and stuff on their laps, and they don't realize that, you know, they're like, this is opening the floodgates to not just COVID, but lots of things. And we know that these exposures lower our immune defenses. EMFs generally are impacting our immune system. A lot of science on that. So I hope that answers your question there. Can you recommend a flicker-free or or low flicker laptop computer? I can't recommend a particular brand on that. What I recommend, well, so it's on the summit, and it's Dr. Richard Conrad who spoke to that specifically with regard to what different frequencies were impacting us. So flicker, we're not always aware of it, and but it is very troubling for our nervous system. So that's the only resource that I know on that. Is so perhaps so there's an interview in, so that's part of the summit package, but if you Google Dr. Richard Conrad, I think it is, and then maybe his website's still up. It was a number of years that I interviewed him. And so let's have a look. What else can I answer here? So with regards to, can EMFs affect your skin, causing seborrheic dermatitis? Yes, EMFs can impact your skin, and certainly these 5G frequencies, that's one of the things that we know is that, so the science is emerging obviously on these higher frequencies, but the higher the frequency, then the less the penetrative power, and the more it would appear that we're impacting the skin. And obviously when we're impacting the skin, then that downstream, a lot of downstream effects of that. So that's the answer is there. Yes, it can, and it is impacting our skin. That's what the science is suggesting. Do you recommend living in rural USA? Well, you know, what I recommend is when you are, wherever you go to live, is to take readings, to apply the OM, and to take and make a decision as to where you want to live. And on the summit, building biologist, now what's he called? Alex Stetner talks about this and in detail about this question about choosing the place to live with regard to EMFs. What are the best EMF meters to date for reasonable prices? I think I've answered that one. So I want, if you had to choose the most effective time to protect yourself during your daily routine, starting your day, e.g. waking up, working 8 to 10 hours away from home in an unknown EMF environment, or sleeping 8 hours, is sleep time more important because of the healing process? Absolutely, yeah. So I don't know, type answer. Okay, so I'm just reading through this. I don't normally use this format, so I'm guessing you're not seeing the questions, but hopefully this is of help here. But yeah, absolutely. That's why I said at the beginning, is it's in your bedroom, it's where you sleep that you need to focus your attention, because it's when your body sleep, that's when your body heals. It's when we've got this cellular rejuvenation, regeneration, detoxification, and all these hormonal processes going on, notably what I was talking about with the melatonin. So that is why we have to create this EMF sleep sanctuary. So it is much more important, and that can buy you resilience during the day. And that's why it's like, it gives you a lot of bang for your buck, okay, to put it another way. Focusing on that bedroom space will give you this resilience, and just really a lot of health benefits to be had from that. Question from Nancy, who says, dimmer switches emit dirty electricity. What if it has a dimmable capable light fixture, but without the dimmer? So with a regular on-off, will there be dirty electricity in this situation? I don't know. You'd have to measure that. And so you would get the, I recommend getting the one of the dirty electricity meters, the Stetzer meter, for instance, to measure that. And it's simple. You plug your meter in, you switch you action the dimmer switch, and you watch the meter, and you switch it off, you switch it on, you switch it off, and you see what happens. And obviously, if you get a spike, then you know you've got a problem, and you know you need to do something. And well, the thing to do is to remove it. Question from Lisa says, I've delayed purchasing a canopy for fear of making it worse. Okay, I feel this is the most cost-effective choice for apartment dwelling. 2 questions. With no EMF consultants near me, how can I safely test the self-install? Well, you know, if you're buying a canopy, it's really, I mean, you should test it, but it should work. But I do recommend testing it. But if you're buying, I mean, these canopies cost like $1,000 minimum, and you need to be buying from a reputable company, like Less EMF, for instance, lessemf.com, and one where you can send the thing back. Now, you can't always send them back with the canopies, actually, so check that. But you can test quite easily. I've actually done a video on that on YouTube, if it's not censored, and just by going in the canopy, taking readings, and taking readings outside and comparing the two. Very simple. So what is dirty? Henrietta says, what is dirty electricity? So dirty electricity is this electrical pollution, which is really everywhere now, on household wiring particularly, and on company wiring, sometimes office wiring also, though that can be shielded in the US, notably in certain states, as I understand it. But it's a worldwide phenomenon, this dirty electricity. And it's these frequencies which research is associating with cancer. And we've got cases, a terrible case of a middle school in California, where there is a really high cancer rate, students, well, teachers dying, children dying, just off the scale cancer rate from these. We get these clusters because you get these buildings where you've got devices and they're creating, it could just be, you know, could be your fan and it's got dodgy electricals in it, for want of a better word, and it's creating dirty electricity. Or maybe it's built that way, cheap stuff from certain countries. Don't want to be racist, but you know, imported cheap electrical goods causing this problem, things like that. So hopefully that explains what dirty electricity is. You can go on my website, and there's, I mean, we had Dave Stetzer, who's like the dirty electricity god, talking on the summit, and really information straight from the horse's mouth there. And because he's the guy who went to Russia to look at all this really sort of research, which is not in the public domain. And there is more and more research in the public domain. One great resource is the Zori Glaser archive, Zori Glaser with an S.com, which has approximately 4,000 documents, Czech, Russian, German, Polish. That's been put online by Dr. Magda Havas, who's one of my heroes, quite frankly, because she's a professor who's done a lot of work on this, and a lot of work on this dirty electricity question. So question here, is there a detox going from this to outside each day one? Not sure what that means, Lisa, sorry. Question, so Henrietta, I've already answered. I'll try and answer something, a question from somebody else. Michelle says, what are your thoughts on Shungai offering EMF protection? Yes, so it's adding it into the mix. So we're back to the and Shungai is apparently this material rock which comes from a meteorite, as we understand it, which can be found from actually Russia again, and which we can wear, which we can introduce in our homes, which, yes, I believe I do, and I've interviewed a lady, Shungite lady, on this, and there's actually, so I'm trying to think of her name, Nancy, forget what her name is now, but that's one of the interviews which is in the EMF Expert Solutions Club, which you get when you buy the summit. But yes, Shungite by all means. Please talk about optical fiber. So optical fiber is safer than, well, anything wired, and optical fiber, so optical light, is really the way to go. And we have that in France, and that's what I'm speaking to you via optical fiber. And it is high speed, way faster, way safer than this 5G, which is bringing all this pollution with it. So absolutely, if you can get optical fiber, proper optical fiber, right from A to Z, because some of the optical fiber which is introduced, it's just been brought to the curb, and then they're using wireless for the last bit. You don't want that. Question from Jody. Sorry again, please, what is the best tools for one's laptop and cell phones and home to protect one's selves? So really, we're back to the protocol, and then introducing certain tools if we can. And with regard to the laptop, it's about how you use the laptop. It's not really about the tools. It's about not using it on your lap. It's about distance is your friend. That's what we say. Distance is your friend with all these EMFs, putting distance between you and the laptop. That's what's important. So don't use it on your lap. And, you know, the laptop shield, really, you can even be using that on your desk, because it depends. You can get these magnetic fields going through from the bottom of the laptop into your legs and into your genitals, causing all kinds of problems. A lot of research on the link between these exposures and our reproductive systems for men and for women, particularly for men. Just there's more research on that. Doesn't mean it's any less of a problem for women, but plenty of research on that. Question from Susan, who says, do you have an opinion on Synergy Science? Chi Shield is one product that you carry around. So again, we're back to adding this into the mix, and that's, so I've reviewed lots of these products, and Synergy is one, and they do have science backing this up. The beneficial effects of the Chi, or Ki, I think they call it. That's how the way they pronounce it. But I recommend the protocol, and then we can add in these devices. Why? Because the works, okay. What I know is I've yet to see any device which protects you from all these different adverse biological effects to our cells, to our DNA, to our stem cells, to our immune system. We've got we don't have any device out there which can protect us from all these adverse effects. So we do have these devices like Synergy, who are doing some supporting what they're doing with research, but we're a long way from really fully being able to say that this gives us full protection. Question from Brian, who says, is Bluetooth as bad as the Wi-Fi? Do you have any information on this? So the thing to understand with Bluetooth is that generally it's another layer. Okay, so it's another layer of EMFs beyond the what you're using. For instance, Bluetooth in a car. You will be using Bluetooth. That's a very frequent way of using Bluetooth. And so you'd have the cell phone, which is communicating with the cell tower, and then you would have the cell phone communicating with the Bluetooth on your vehicle. So we've got this extra layer of RF radiation, and that's what Bluetooth is: radio frequency microwave radiation. So it is low level, but all of this is low level. You know, everything I've talked about here right from the beginning, it's all low level, but the problem is not the level. It's this complex radiation, this electromagnetic fields, which are man-made, which we have not evolved to live. Our biology has not adapted to live in this environment, in these environments with these frequencies. So we're surrounded by frequencies, but not these frequencies, which have just come along in the last 10, 20, 30 years. And even electricity. You know, we've got correlation between when electricity was introduced. If you look at the Samuel Millam's book on dirty electricity, electricity was introduced, and we compares the mortality rates between states that had it and states that did not have it in the US. And boy, I mean, it's very concerning, just the electricity, that this correlation between electricity being introduced and higher mortality rates. So, and the other problem with Bluetooth is often, you know, like Bluetooth headsets, we put it right next to your ear. So it's a proximity again, which is another important factor in these exposures. So question here from Maria. I bought plugs to protect myself from EMFs recommended by Dr. Lee, who had recommended the Gauss meter test. I bought plugs for all my rooms. Do these plugs go bad and have to be replaced every few years? I don't know what the plugs are. Sorry, I don't know what that one, what you're referring to exactly on that one. So a question from JC: how does EMF exposure negatively impact people with Lyme disease? So yeah, this is a big one, and because a lot of people, it's a huge problem, Lyme disease. And what we are finding is that by reducing exposure to EMFs, that people with Lyme are less symptomatic. And so, you know, so we're back to this sort of toxic barrel philosophy of health, and that you're born and your barrel's clean or your barrel's pretty empty, and then as we live and eat and drink and put soaps and shampoos and stuff on our skin, then this barrel fills up. And so this EMF interacts with all that which is in that barrel, and that's one of the problems. And we're trying to reduce whatever disease it is you have. We're trying to reduce, that's what you should be doing, reducing your exposure to the toxins and detoxing. And what I say is that EMFs, and put myself out of it here, but are the mother of all toxins, because of the way that they can interact with all these other different toxins. So let's have a look. So I've got lots and lots of questions zipping through these. Does anyone know if Lloyd recommends a meter to measure dirty electricity? I do. So yeah, the Stetzer riser meter is very simple. And I also mentioned Satic, who made a meter also to measure that. Greenwave.Do too. I just use a regular Stetzer riser meter, and I know a lot of building biologists are using that. And it's the Stetzer riser technology is what's been used in peer-reviewed studies. So that's one good reason. Question from Stacy, who says, is any digital meter attached to a house a smart meter? I have one attached to my house. However, the electric company claims it is not a smart meter. What do you recommend? Well, pretty much that's what they all say. No, it's not a smart meter. Well, what I recommend is getting readings, because that's the only way you can know, is to take readings. So I get an EMF consultant in, or buy an RF meter, the Safe and Sound 2, which is, like I say, 150 Canadian dollars, if I'm not mistaken, and take readings around that meter to establish if we do have RFs. And you can shield, there are ways of dealing with it, but maybe it's not even wireless, but you don't know until you measure. Question from Steve: what is Google's reasons for censorship, fear of losing advertising dollars? What happened to the First Amendment? Yeah, great question. Well, if only I knew. I don't know. And so many people have been censored. I'm sure that I don't know, maybe you've not heard what's happened to Dr. McCullough and to Sayer G with Green Med Info, and all that happened to me about the same time as it happened to them. This censorship. And so, but people said to me, well, how do you know you're censored? Well, because before you could put in like cell phone radiation or Bluetooth radiation, and then all my articles were referenced, and they're not anymore. You have very great difficulty when you go to Google is finding my articles, and this is the sad state of affairs. And so it's harder to get independent information now, unfortunately. Can you repeat those two shields for laptops you just mentioned? Sure, I can. So those are Defender Shield, if all one word, Defender Shield. I think it's Daniel Bourne, B-A-U-N, who's the gentleman behind that. And the other one is Harapad, H-A-R-A-P-A-D. And question from Maya, who says, is there a support group for EH, especially since 5 years of symptoms now that I cannot find anywhere? I want to know how many others may be dealing with them. There is, well, in the UK, there's electrosensitivity I think it's called, and I'm a member of that. I donate to that. There are groups. So, so on my website, I talk a lot about this. What you need to do, so you need to be careful where you're going, because there's people that are good intention, but you need to be in the energy of finding a solution. And so, what I do is really, so I'm talking about this from the perspective of somebody who is hypersensitive, and still today I'm hypersensitive. I just don't get the symptoms. So I know a lot about this. I'm not claiming I know everything. I'm not claiming I'm a world expert. I'm not claiming I'm the best or the strongest or the fastest. But what I'm saying is go to somebody who's gone through this and come out the other side, wherever. And I've created lots of resources to help people with this. And because the whole electrical hypersensitivity thing is actually more than just EMFs. And I've also created a mentorship program to help people with that, which goes beyond just what I'm talking about here, the and that's really having some great success with that, with people, which is all about living healthy in this electromagnetic world. But if you're sensitive to energy, because that's the real thing, is that you're sensitive to energy. It's not being necessarily just sensitive to electromagnetic fields. So question from Gail, who says how to block EMFs coming through in through the window in my apartment from 6 electrical meters just outside the window, and how dangerous is this situation for me? To know how dangerous, the first step is to measure. Gail, you want to measure that, get the, if it's just RFs, get the Safe and Sound, for instance, from Safe Living Technologies in Canada. They ship to the US. That's how you would know what the exposures are. And so I have benchmark levels, which I give, and this is what I developed for my book. So these are not what I'm saying safe, but you will be taking readings of these 4 categories of EMFs, and you will be looking for readings for radio frequency radiation below 0.02 volts per meter, for electric fields below 1 volt per meter, for magnetic fields below 0.5 milligauss, and for the electricity be below 50 GS units. That's the Graham-Stetzer units. That probably doesn't mean anything to you if you don't have any of these meters or anything, but so yeah, I know there's a lot to learn here, and but it's important, and it's your health, and it's your family's health, it's your kids' health. You need to be taking the readings, and then what you can, if you do need to shield, then you could with a window film, and you can buy that from lessemf.com. A question from Milena: is it possible to get How to Beat Electrical Sensitivity on its own? It's a package. As far as I know, it's not. So it's all part of a package with lots of other stuff, really. It was initially on sale as a separate book, but it's as far as I know, it's not now. A question from Diana, who says, does EMF protection paint work? What about copper curtains or router guard you recommend? I also work in a school and bombarded by Wi-Fi, which leads to debilitating symptoms. Is there a safe zone in keeping distance from EMFs, and any barriers at best? So does EMF protection work? Certain protection paints work. Yeah, some don't. Y-Shield, for instance, I've used that. That works. That's sort of the market leader. I'm not saying it's the best. You can get that from my website, from the shop, electricsense.com. Copper curtains, I've not tested that. Router guards, they do work. You can get that from my website. So I partner with Less EMF. So I earn a small commission if you buy through my shop. And so you work in a school, you're bombarded, is there a safe zone? It's what you do at home, Diana, That's the most important thing. So at school, you want to be doing what I mentioned, getting people on board with this in a non-aggressive way, softly explaining to people what the problem is. And then it's what you're doing at home, and then so that means it's the applying this and these 4 different categories, taking the readings and the mitigation, applying EMF shielding as is necessary, if it's really necessary. And what about you? So Margaret says, what about the UK for your package? Yeah, it's all digital. All this, everything I've talked about, the Summit and the ultimate EMF protection kit. So the Summit's at $59, if memory serves correctly. The ultimate EMF protection kit, which you can buy once you've bought the Summit, is at $39. And so all that is digital. So you get immediate access, So lots of questions coming through still. I'm going to wrap up in a few moments. Does your hard copy book along with your protective kit come with the purchase of the Summit? No, it doesn't. Not the hard copy book. You would have to buy that separately. It's all digital because they sold out. Well, they sold out of the hard copy book wasn't in there initially, but they sold out of the hard copy of the transcripts, as I understand. Lexi says, if I hardwire my home, can any electrician install optic fiber from street to home? Depends where you live. This is like where I live, it's all controlled by companies which are providing the you just sign a contract, you take a contract out to have fiber and it's sold on A to Z. So it depends where you live. Question from Helenak, who says, does running an Ethernet wire from computer to the router cause dirty electricity? Not that I'm aware of. There could be dirty electricity frequencies on that wire, but I wouldn't go overboard on that because you can take this to sort of the nth detail, so don't get obsessive about this either, but Ethernet hardwiring is the way to go, absolutely. Jennifer says, what about PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequency medical devices? I have a full body mat which says it helps a variety of conditions. Yeah, and I've heard good things about that too, and I know that Magda Havas has done some research on that also. So yes, by all means, this can be a way of reclaiming back your health. Question from Nat says, are you aware of any internet cable and or cellular companies within the USA that are offering fiber optic? I don't know that one, sorry, I live in France. So question from Eleanor, what is the safe distance from a smart meter? So that depends, because some smart meters are wireless, some smart meters are showing sending the data through the power line called broadband over power line, in which case it's perfectly safe to be very close to it. So again, we have to take measurements. Question from BK, who says, how about biogeometry invented by Dr. Ibrahim Karim? That's for balancing EMF and their many products. I've interviewed Dr. Karim several times. He's a brilliant man. And so we're back to this as being an adjunct to the So we do this rigorous EMF protection. And then by all means, adding in biogeometry is absolutely thing to do. And question from Joe and Brainard, how do all these EMFs affect pacemakers? Excellent question. Yeah, there are people that are having problems with this, these little batteries, and notably cell phones, anything. So because the pacemakers have little batteries, and then we've got these very high frequencies, which are, we've got this interplay between these wireless devices and if you look at the in the small print on some of these wireless devices and these different frequencies are actually talking about this. So you do need to be careful on that. And I know there have been problems with that. Question, so Mary Agnes has put this on here. Do cell phone and laptop protecting cases like safe sleeve work? Are there any wearable EMF protection devices that kids can take to school and sports? I see cell towers right on the soccer fields this year, which is scary. Yeah. So like safe sleeve. So safe sleeve, I've not tested their products, but they have a very good reputation. I've tested the Pong and I know the Croz ones They've been tested by less EMF. Everything they sell, they test. The other website I recommend is shieldyourbody.com, which is R. Blank's company, which is the son of Professor Martin Blank, who's a bit of an EMF pioneer, passed away a few years ago. I interviewed him. That interview is also in the EMF Expert Solutions Club, which you get if you buy the summit. So Safe Sleeve, yes, that is a reputable brand, absolutely. I mean, the principle for the cell phones is like a bit like a chimney, you know, like when you've got a fire, it's directing it, the radiation plume away from you. That's the principle with regard to the cell phone cases and laptop cases. It's just shielding, it's high-tech shielding to protect you primarily from magnetic fields. So you don't want to be using it on Wi-Fi. That's the thing. If you're using a laptop, don't use it on Wi-Fi in your lab. We'll never use it on your lab. Are there any wearable EMF protection devices that kids can take to school and sports? You know, the thing is to get their bedroom as low EMF as possible. There's some horrible, terrible stories about children that have been sleeping in bedrooms with high electromagnetic fields. And I interviewed a father, which is actually Joe Darnell, if memory serves correctly, who is actually Dr. Libby Darnell's brother, and his daughter, 7 years old, died, and it was through these exposures from her bedroom was next to an electrical device, a fan, I think it was, a fan, and terrible story. Young child died. So that's where you need to be looking, is the bedroom. And I've got to talk about this in my book. Got a few horror stories like that, but it's actually, and it's a book which is designed to uplift, because it's talking about solutions and talking about things you can do and things that people have done and that it's worked. So not really, I'm not recommending wearable EMF protection. That is, for a whole load of reasons, not where, it's not what's worked for me. And you can do this, but in my view, it's not the way to go long term. Question from Lynn, who says, he said that this Q&A is available on a recording for the next few days. That is correct. That's what I'm told. So I don't control this. It's the people at Health Means who I did the summit with. So I actually did this summit the first time in 2018. They kindly, because it's such an important topic, said that, well, they had a slot in their in their calendar, and we were able to put it out again this year with another 10 interviews. And so it will be, according to Health Means, it will be on the same page where you can go back to the same page and you can watch this recording. So that's, Eleanor says, does your hardcover book come with the purchase of your protective kit? No, not in this package here. So if you, so I've got different packages which you can buy through my website, but this is all digital. There's nothing hard cover here. It's all digital. Sorry, that's the way it is. Cass says, when can I see the webinar replay? I don't know exactly, but very quickly, within 24 hours. I know they'll do the best to put that out really quickly. Stocker says, what are the best light bulbs for our house? Best light bulbs are the incandescents, actually. So that's like the old, like, you know, like the light bulbs we used to have, which are harder to get now. Not the CFLs, not the LEDs generally, though some LEDs are safer. But to know that, you would need to measure with a meter. So incandescents, traditional light bulbs, the one that heats, the one that uses the power. Okay, but you just switch off all the lights. Just have that one room. Just have the lights on in that one room. Cass says, thank you for all you do. You're most welcome. And Jennifer, so I've answered that question. And Dorothy, I live in France, and I've also put 4 layers of aluminium foil on top of my smart meter. They can still read my meter. Does anything else need to be covered, like the whole wall where the link is? So you need to take readings. Yeah, okay, you're on a small budget, or get somebody in with a meter, or borrow one from somebody. Beg, steal, or borrow, yeah. But that's the way to go, is to Lloyd doesn't have all the answers, but there's like a strategy. That's what I that's what I want you to understand here today, which anybody can apply. If you apply this, then this is, you know, you're as equipped to make you're the best person actually to make these decisions if you apply this strategy. And that's the and it's a strategy of empowerment. And that's what I wanted to do by sharing this information, is to empower you. And so last question, do homes built out of concrete have the same EMF issues as others? You know, it depends. So that's a bit of a loaded question, but there is a certain protection, let's put it like that, from concrete, a certain insulating effect from concrete constructions. And so I really hope that this has been helpful. I've tried to answer as many questions as possible here today. As you can see, this is a big subject. We barely scratched the surface. The replay will be up for a few days on this, so don't delay in coming back to watch that. And by all means, share it with your friends, your neighbor's dog, with everybody, anybody who wants to, and anybody that should. Share it with your kids, notably. And, you know, I encourage you to keep learning about this topic and to invest in the summit. Try to make it as inexpensive as possible. And if you can get the kit also, you buy the summit and then get the kit once you've bought the summit. That's, you know, for $100. Wow, what a great package. What an investment for years to come, really. Information that you can go back to time and time again, and you can consume it in lots of different ways. You can watch the videos, you can listen to the MP3s, you can read the transcripts. So thank you to everybody who sent in their questions. Thanks to everyone who participated. Thanks to my amazing team. Thanks to Mary Agnes, thanks to Tabitha, thanks to all the people at Health Means that made all this possible. And yeah, have a great day.